Self-employment in the developed world, one often thinks of it as chosen. People choose to start their own firm, choose to start their own enterprise. In the developing world, it's not always the case. And as we know, wage employment in the developing world, as I mentioned before, is not the main source of jobs. And when you can't get a wage job and you don't have a social protection system available to feed you, and you can't rely on family, then you have to make money somehow. So a lot of self-employed in the developing world are thereby constrained. They don't have the choice, they just need to make some money so that they can survive. So the big question is, how important is this constrained self-employment versus chosen self-employment in the developing world? There's been a fair amount of research on the question that's trying to look at the issue, and it varies dramatically across countries. It varies with the level of income. It can vary with the availability of social protection and other sorts of substitution mechanisms. One thing that we find is that what increases the likelihood of having chosen self-employment and reduces the importance of constrained self-employment are things that tend to increase the availability of wage jobs. So for example, when you reduce constraints to make hiring people and firing people less costly. So firms decide that they want to hire more workers. When firms decide they want to hire more workers, the share of workers who are self-employed by constraint drops. And so the ones who are left are there essentially by choice. Same sort of thing with respect to financing constraints. One of the main problems that firms in small employers in the developing countries have is getting credit to grow. If they can't get credit to grow, they can't create jobs. If they're not creating jobs, then the people who they would otherwise be hiring might end up constrained self-employed. When you release these constraints, or you ease these constraints on accessing credit, the firms can grow, they can create more jobs, they can hire some of these people who would otherwise be constrained self-employed, and then the share that's there by choice tends to grow. One last thing about that, however, when you ask employers in developing countries who they want to hire, it's typically not the people who are there by constraint. They would rather hire other wage employees. So there is a serious issue of when these jobs are created, making sure that the people who are constrained self-employed can actually do them. But that's another question.